is my podcast, Trade Secrets. Welcome to another episode of just fun and shenanigans. This is Clark Germain. Clark is a very talented recording engineer, mixer, producer. He's also a wine aficionado. Yeah, he's a part of the illustrious Vin Audio group. You've met a couple people on my show before who are part of Vin Audio. It's awesome. Anyway, Clark, welcome.
Thank you. I also restore Mini Coopers, classic Mini Coopers.
Yes, he restores Mini Coopers too. So he's a bon vivant Renaissance man. An awesome cat. So Clark, it's pretty simple. It's pretty unscripted. I ask one question because a lot of what I want to do is I want to shine a light on there's no one way to end up here, wherever here is, and that everybody kind of finds their bliss, as it were. And so it starts out at the beginning. And a question that almost everyone knows an answer to, which is, where were you born?
Yes, I do know that. Burbank, California, next door to Mickey Mouse.
Really? Like St. Joe's?
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you know that you didn't used to be able to go there or have a baby there if you weren't Catholic? Did you know that? I found that out with another person I was talking to, yeah. Now it's okay. St. Joe's welcomes people of all faiths.
Well, there must have been even then, though, because my grandfather was Catholic, and then he left the Catholic Church.
Did they know, though?
No, he wanted to marry my grandmother. Oh. And they said, if she's not Catholic, you can go ahead and do whatever you want with her, but we won't
it won't be a sanctified marriage. Yeah.
So he turned Lutheran.
Really? Well, I'm Episcopalian, which is sort of Henry VIII's creation of how to get a divorce. How to get a divorce and mollify the Pope at the same time, I guess, which didn't really work. But so you're born in Burbank. Now, where did you go to elementary school?
Elementary school at Mountain Avenue Elementary, where my sister ended up teaching.
Well, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Is it in Glendale or is it in Burbank?
It is in La Cañada, La Crescenta, right at the border.
Ritzy kid, La Cañada,
no, I was right.
Flint Ridge.
La Cañada, Flint Ridge. Our address was technically La Cañada. This is prior to La Cañada,
That's what matters.
But then we were right on the cusp of La Crescenta.
La Crescenta is thought of as the slightly not as fancy version of La Cañada, but La Crescenta is pretty freaking nice. And
don't ask the La Cañadans that.
The La Cañadans.
It's not slightly.
And then it's La Cañada Flint Ridge.
Yes.
Right. And but what about Verdugo City? Is that there too? What is that? That's an area right there off of Verdugo.
I don't.
It's all very.
I don't know where those borders.
I don't. Anyway.
So I went to Crescenta. I went to the La Crescenta school system because my mother. They were starting in La Cañada. They were starting a forward-thinking experimental education program, even in the grade school, and my mother did not want us involved in that, so she sent us to.
Really? Was it new math?
It ended up being a fantastic education, but it was new.
But wait, you went to the regular school?
I went to Crescenta Valley.
The not fancy new school?
Correct.
Because your mom wanted you to fit in.
Well, my
whatever
mom
reason
wanted us to get a proper education, as she thought.
So she thought the new one wasn't?
Correct.
Okay, noted. Well, God bless her. What was her name?
Dorothy.
Dorothy. Oh. Now, what did your mom and dad do?
My dad was a cement contractor. My mom was a housewife. 50s.
You know, I don't know if you know this, but your father's wine cellar, a.k.a. bomb shelter, is an inspiration to me, and I'm going to retire pretty soon, and I've told my husband, Brian, that the two things that I need is, well, three things. I need a fireplace. I need to be 15 minutes to the nearest hospital. You know, you're going to be old. And I want to build a quote-unquote shelter, because there's a lot of hurricanes there and now tornadoes. Right. And I want to build a shelter that won't flood, that will keep me safe if there's a tornado. Because in South Carolina, traditionally when hurricanes, you want to be high ground because it floods. But tornadoes, obviously, you want to be low ground. So I got to figure this out. And I'm going to get the blueprints of your dad's
I've got
structure.
Lots of pictures.
Seriously. And what it's going to be is it's going to be my wine cellar. Maybe I'll have some canned soup or something in there in a camp stove. But it's going to be my wine cellar that if there's a really bad hurricane, that I just go into my wine cellar and drink with a LED lantern while the storm rages above.
That was the idea. He built it as a bomb shelter / wine cellar. So if that ever did happen, we were going to be happy.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Now, what's your dad's first name?
Stan.
Stan the man.
Stan the man.
I'm telling you, Stan had a plan.
And he was. Yeah, I mean, I was a kid, and I walked out from my bedroom one day, and he's digging a hole in the backyard
It's fucking awesome.
between the pool and the house.
Well, between the pool and the house.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is what we don't talk about in the earthquakes of California. So what happens if the pool fucks up in the earthquake? Does it like bleed into the bomb shelter? Or
Oh, it definitely would.
wine cellar?
It definitely would.
Okay.
But it never happened.
Never happened. Knock utility table. So, so Stan and Dorothy,
Yep.
just you and your sister, or how many other
Yeah.
siblings?
Just myself and my sister.
And she's younger or older?
2 years older.
Oh, okay.
Lori.
So, middle class family.
Yeah, I mean, we lived probably better than our budget because my father was very handy and he
Got you. My
built
dad's
the
same.
house and he built like the wine cellar by himself, dug it, pulled rocks this big out of the ground with his winch on
Crazy,
his
right?
truck. He was just
He took the
He can
trees and
do-
hewed the trees to
Yes.
make the wood.
he could do anything.
My dad was like that too. I think that's a lot. I think that's a generation we sorely miss.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty handy, and you can do a Mini Cooper, but I don't think I could build a house.
Yeah, through hanging with my father and building a couple of buildings with him, I can build a
Well, and
building.
you just we're jumping ahead, but you just
my
redid
God.
some stuff in your house.
Timeline.
No, I can do what I want. It's
Okay.
my podcast. Fuck it.
Oh, that's true.
But you just did a whole bunch of redesign in your own house up
Yeah,
in
we
Laurel
just
Canyon.
completely went to the studs and put a roof deck on
And was
top.
that a lot of your plans and you working together with an architect and a designer or contractor?
My wife Tina and I kind of did the design for the most part, but then you have to get an architect to get the plans okayed by the city.
Right.
Because I don't know structural. I had to bring in a
Right.
17-foot steel beam to support the roof deck. And
Right.
So that kind of stuff I hired out. But
You know, so to become a recording engineer requires a great deal of technical knowledge. Obviously, we all love music, even those of us who can't play an instrument like me. But you're a little kid, you're going to school in this, groovy area. If you're not from California, to give you perspective, there's lots of mountains here and lots of valleys. And people don't necessarily think of Los Angeles that way. But there's the San Gabriel Valley, which is out by Pasadena and going towards where Clark was. There's the Verdugo Mountains, and there's the Santa Monica Mountains on the west side. There's a lot of mountain ranges around valleys. So where he grew up would have been considered probably foothills of these mountain ranges. He didn't live on top of the mountain range, but he lived in the foothills. And this is really incredibly beautiful country and would have been a really fun place to grow up. Because I can imagine you would ride your bike everywhere. You could have done whatever you wanted, right?
Yeah, no, it was great.
Normal
Especially,
little boy stuff.
I mean, during that time, because, it was pretty much your mom said, as long as you're back for dinner.
Same. Come back by dark and go away.
There was a group of us that had our Stingrays, and we'd,
Do it with like the ape
ride
hangers
for
and the banana
miles.
seat bike?
I did not.
No?
No, I didn't have the ape.
What kind of
bikes.
bike did you have?
I don't remember what it was, but it was, it was gold.
Oh, nice. I used to change the color of my bike every weekend. I would take it apart and repaint it a new color. I don't know why I did that. I
Very
did it all the time.
industrious of you.
I don't know. I did it all the time. But so you're going to elementary school. Now, did they have a music program in your elementary school?
They did. I played the flute and the baritone horn.
Very cool.
Not well, but I did.
But you were into it.
I enjoyed it, and then I started guitar lessons at probably 8 or 9.
Do you know that's a running theme for most of the engineers I talked to? A lot of them were guitar players or bass players. I never knew Joe Ciccarelli was a guitar player. Yeah, a lot of them. Jurgen Carlson, well, he is a bass player, but also an engineer. But so guitar. So what was the first record you remembered hearing or song that you tried to cover on your guitar?
I mean, at that time, it was, everybody was going crazy for the Beatles.
Of course.
I was a huge fan of Deep Purple.
Nice. Good
Just like that.
choice.
Yeah.
Great musicians. If you don't know, if you're not familiar to Deep Purple, go listen to fucking Deep Purple. They're fucking amazing. Anyway.
And I had a paper route.
Of course
And I
you did.
remember delivering the papers and coming across this house where this band lived. And I, to this day, don't know who that band was. But I remember going in, and they were really cool to me as a kid. And they let me hang out at one of their rehearsals, and they were really good. And I wish I could find out
We
who
try
they
to find,
were.
yeah, maybe we'll try to find out. And that was in La Cosena?
Yeah, it was in La Crescenta. My paper route went south of Foothill Boulevard in these, little residential area. So
To this day, I still am a member of Descanso, and I go to Descanso Gardens all the time. And that's sort of in this same similar area, border from La Crescenta to La Candela.
yeah, it's really pretty.
It's gorgeous up there. So, guitar. What was your first guitar?
It was a Les Paul copy.
But your parents were supportive of this venture, this adventure.
They were fairly so. They didn't. Neither of them were into music. My mother loved to whistle while she did dishes and stuff.
Oh.
And,
Did they
whistle
listen
on
to
for
swing or
showcases.
anything like that? Do you recall?
My dad was a country fan
Oh,
more
nice.
than anything else, and they
Nice.
gave us, I think it was a Hank Williams record, and the first track, he had a couple of what they considered curse words.
Oh, yes.
So they filled it with nail polish. So my sister and I couldn't play the first track because it had curse words in it. So of course we played it over and over and over until we wore the nail polish out of the grooves so we could hear it.
Just such risk takers, rebels.
I'm telling you.
I love Hank Williams, actually. I mean, I don't think people realize how talented a lot of those players are, country
Oh,
players.
yeah. They're great.
Amazing. So, playing guitar, you're 9, probably like 3rd or 4th grade?
Yeah, probably when I started.
Did you have a band?
Now a couple of us got together in a garage and jammed and didn't know anything, and it didn't go anywhere. I found that I took to the technical end of things
Early.
Yeah, it wasn't like I.
Were you the one trying to figure out how the amps worked and how the mics worked and stuff like that?
I was very into those aspects of it, and then, I mean, I don't know how deep in the weeds we want to get of my
Dude,
life. But
that's what it's about. It's about you.
There's-
What it really is telling, though, because you're not the first person that said this. That said, like, oh, I was playing guitar, and then I was like, oh, wait, we sound like crap. We have to get a better PA or whatever it is. So yeah, I want to know. Was it an amp? What was the?
Well, basically, between 6th and 7th grade, I had a real bad medical issue. I got put in the hospital I was in the hospital for like 3 or 4 months with a stomach pump.
Oh,
And when you get up from that, I mean, you're just wiped out. And so it was hard for me to walk to the door and back. And I started thinking, well, I got to figure out how I'm going to get back.
what
in
did you
shape.
have?
I got beat up.
Oh, you got beat up.
Yeah.
You got beat up and got hurt that bad that you were in the hospital?
Yeah, my stomach was paralyzed. And my
Fuck these
liver
guys.
was,
But I want to dig into this. How did you get beat up?
These things I don't dig in.
Okay, we're not talking about how you
No,
got
we're
beat
not
up.
talking
If
how I
you
did
listen to this podcast and you had any part of that, you just know that I'm going to find you. I'm going to find you, and I'm going to find out why you did that to Clark. Anyway, nobody fucks with my friends. All right.
So anyway, I say that because that's what got me. I decided, I saw an article and I wanted to ride my bike across country. I said, that's how I'm going to get back in shape.
He's also a cyclist. We didn't talk about that. He's badass. Buns of steel over here.
So I go to the local bike shop when I get out of the hospital, and one of the first American pros, his name was Tom Snedden, was working there on bikes. And he said, oh,
He
you
was
don't want.
local?
He was, yeah.
Wow.
I think he still lives here. Anyway, he said, no, you don't want to ride across country. I'll set you up with kind of an entry-level racing bike, and I'll be your coach.
We love this guy.
I was like, okay. So throughout...
I love your glasses, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Throughout sports, I was my father's worst nightmare. It's like the dads get together and they're
You got the football kid, the baseball kid, and then you got Clark.
Yeah, they're talking about, my kid's the first pick, second pick, and then it comes down to Smith and Germain. And Smith's got his leg in a cast, and the last pick, they take Smith. And Germain goes to the last. I was just horrible at all sports. I was embarrassed for my father. I felt badly for my dad.
Yeah, I
could
was
care
like-
less. For me, I was like, okay,
Yeah, fuck
I
it.
suck.
And
Years-
also, you're probably starting to, check out girls, maybe even smoke pot. I'm not saying that you smoked pot at an early age, but you might have.
No, I didn't.
You did?
I didn't. No.
What?
I wasn't a smoker.
No weed?
No, this is like
13?
seventh grade.
14?
man. No.
Fuck, I did. I was like 11.
Well, that's good. I made up for it in drinking and other
Other pastimes.
other pastimes.
So
later on.
this bike coach, did you do like trails and foothills?
No, we started road, and for some reason I took to it extremely well, and I did really well right away. And so, but in doing well, I ended up making the U.S. team. There's 20 guys at the U.S.
No, I
alone
don't
team.
know if I ever knew that. That's very cool.
Yeah, so you go up in the Olympic Training Center, and you can stay there, and you train in high altitude. And
Where is the training center?
Colorado Springs.
Oh, got you. Oh, I
But
knew that.
one time I went with 2 other teammates to one of the guys' houses in Nevada. He was living in Nevada to ski for a ski vacation. And the 3 of us are sitting around talking. And the one guy goes, no Americans ever made any money in this sport. And at the time, it was all European riders. We were reading the magazines, and Eddie
This is
Merckx.
pre-Lance Armstrong, probably.
Eddie Merckx, all these guys, way pre-Lance Armstrong. And so this guy says, no Americans ever made money in this sport. We should just quit and get real jobs. And at that time, I was leaning more towards music.
How old were you by then? 16, 17?
15,
Okay.
14, 15.
Gotcha.
I was leaning more towards music, and the guy that said that was Greg LeMond.
I don't know who that is.
He won the Tour de France 3 times.
Of course
He's the
he
first
did.
American
He
to ever
just
win the
wanted
Tour.
you guys out of the way.
Well, but here's the deal.
Serious.
Here's the deal. At the Olympic Training Center, they have machines that test your given output. And we're all the top in the country at the time, top 20. And so everybody's kind of neck and neck. Greg got on the thing, and the doctor's jaws just dropped.
Is it like lung power?
It's
What?
max O2 and tests other things. And he was just a freak of nature. So that combined with we boycotted 1980 and we were training for the Olympics. And that kind of took the wind out of a lot of people's sails. Because it's like, I'm training for this, and for a political reason, we can't do it.
Yeah.
So that caused those series of events. I wasn't going to be a freak of nature. It was clear, and I was going more towards music. And another friend of mine, a cyclist, said, "Hey, look, you play guitar, and you know about electronics. You should be a recording engineer."
Wow, that early, huh?
I said, "What's that?" Yeah, I was probably 14, 15.
Wow, yeah, seriously.
I didn't know what it was. No, at that time I was probably 16, 17 because I could drive.
Were you looking at the backs of your favorite records, starting to figure out, like, hey, there's somebody that actually records this shit?
Always. The records, and we go back to Deep Purple, Cosmos Factory had all these in-studio shots in the...
Yep.
And that was my porn. I was like, wow, look at that. It was really cool.
Yeah.
So, that's what got me started.
And you start seeing, I remember seeing the same names over and over again. Like even on the Beatles records, like I would see Jeff Emmerich, or I would see, obviously George Martin, of course, you would see as a producer. But then you started to see like, Chuck Britz, or, I'm older than you, but you would start to see these names, and you'd see the same name in a lot of places. And you'd be like, oh, this guy... I like these records, and maybe I liked them because he did them. It's a different artist, and you start to see a pattern of what your vibe is.
Right.
So, I mean, we live in the town, thank God, that nurtured recording studios, recording engineers, etc.
Well, it's also, it's a place you don't have to pack up your bags.
Right, you don't have to
come
move.
out here and get an apartment. I was still living at my parents' house, so I went to Recording Institute of America. I had to drive to Santa Ana. There were no other schools.
So you're cruising down Orange County in your boat. What color was this Volkswagen?
At that time, I don't think it was a Volkswagen. I think I was driving an Opel GT at the time.
Nice.
A poor man's Corvette.
Ooh, yes, the poor man's Corvette. I like those
little
cars.
flip-over headlights.
A friend of mine had one in high school. Was it red?
It was.
Yeah. they were always like red. I was like, why are they all red? So you're cruising down. Now, did you ever break down on the way to recording school?
No, never did.
Dude, in the Opel and the Volkswagen, that's pretty awesome.
But I went down there on the first day, and there's probably 10 of us.
Okay.
And
Do I know any of these other people?
No. The only person that stuck with it for a while was another friend of mine who we went into the control room, and the owner of the studio winds up, he couldn't sell studio time, so he took on the school as a way to get studio
survive.
time booked,
Yeah.
right? And so he would come in and he says, there's a band in there. And there was a band in there. He goes, here's the preamp, there's a fader. I'll be in my office.
What the fuck? Was there an
Nobody
actual
knew
teacher?
anything.
No real teacher?
No
What
teacher.
the F, bro?
And so myself and this other person, we just start pushing buttons and trying to figure it out. I go into his office.
And it's running tape, I'm assuming.
Yeah. And it's a 3M tape machine, which was not an easy.
What a pain in the ass.
That remote was
That pain in the ass.
trickery unto itself. So, yeah. So basically, I learned by myself and
Seat
one
of the
other
pants.
guy. Seat of the pants.
Winging it.
Yeah.
What was the name of that band?
I don't know. I do not know. I remember it being a Christian rock band of some sort because one of the girls in the class was a hardcore into the Christian rock, and so she was super excited she was going to get her friends free studio time.
Interesting.
Little did they know they were getting studio time with people who had no idea what they were doing.
They probably ended and or the owner may have gone back in and done reparation before their demo was done. Who knows? We don't know.
No.
Probably not.
No.
Didn't care.
No, he was passed out.
Okay. Interesting. Sounds like me. Anyway, now one thing about Clark, those of you who probably have, if you look up his credits, and you should, he's one of the most diverse engineers and mixers that I know. I mean, across many genres, punk, jazz, big band. This guy, he can do anything, and that's kind of rare, actually, to be honest. People tend to get genre typecast in their ability.
Well, you do just from work, because if you have
you do
if you
something.
have success in one arena, then that's where your
people
jobs
call you.
come from.
So you're in high school, you're doing that. How did you do in school? Regular school.
I did fine, but I was bored.
Yeah,
I just wanted
'cause
to
he's
get
smart.
out. I graduated
Smart
early.
people get bored.
I don't know about that. I graduated early, but while I was still in high school, I went to what was one of the early punk rock clubs called the Hong Kong Cafe.
Oh, yeah.
And I was watching bands there.
Is that Madame Wong's or no?
No, they're separate.
Okay.
Madame Wong's, there were always fights in the courtyard. Madame Wong's was the new wave place. Hong
Okay.
Kong Cafe was pretty hardcore punk.
And where is it, Santa Monica or is it the Valley?
No, it's in Chinatown, downtown
Oh,
Chinatown.
well, there you go, Hong Kong Cafe.
Yeah, and Madame Wong's. That was
Yes,
the original
Madame
Madame
Wong's.
was
Yeah,
there,
yeah.
too.
What's the first band you remember seeing, punk band, that you were into? The Dickies are local boys.
I mean, probably Black Flag.
Nice.
They would play the club, and so I went up to the sound man.
That's Henry Rollins, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
I went up to the sound guy, Paul, and I met him. And I'm like this little geek. I'm like, hey, I've got a degree in recording engineering. I could do live sound on your days off.
Good.
And he was thrilled. He was in a band called
Somebody please help me.
Yeah. He was in a band called 45 Grave, and they would play, and he'd say, I need somebody to do. So I started riding my scooter on school nights down to the Hong Kong Cafe.
This is when we had parents who either didn't know what we were doing, didn't care what we were doing, or didn't realize
honestly-
the environment that we were being exposed to.
I honestly don't
I think they're worn
remember
out.
how they took
I think
to
it's
it.
worn out.
Well, they might have been worn out because I was child number 2.
Yeah.
And they also knew, I think I sold it as, look, that's why I went to school. I went to school for this. This is my first job opportunity.
When you're a trustworthy kid, and that's the other thing. They expected us to work by the time we were 16, 17, 18. You had to be doing something besides the paper route and figuring out another plan. Were they pressing you to go to college?
They never did. My
Nice.
dad didn't go to college. So, no, they never did.
That's actually fine.
Yeah.
God bless. It's great not to be pressured. Anyway, so I'm going to ask you, I don't know a lot about the punk history of LA, but I think of it as starting in the UK and New York and other towns. But I guess,
Definitely New York.
but we were
New
like
York had been
CBGBs
inspired.
and stuff like that, right? But there's like the Butthole Surfers, the Circle Jerks, Black Flag, 45 Grave, like you said.
I mean, there's Agent Orange. The
Right.
Germs were the first.
Germs. Oh.
I shared a house in Hollywood with the drummer from the Germs.
Who was in the Germs, everybody? Test. Pat Smear, who plays with the Foo Fighters, was in
Indeed.
the original Germs.
Indeed. And
Nirvana, but also but in the Germs.
And Don Bowles, who was the drummer, was also the drummer in 45 Grave. And I lived in the house with 45 Grave.
So the guy that did the sound for Black Flag, what did he play in 45 Grave? Was he the drummer?
He was the sound for the Hong Kong
Oh,
Cafe.
okay, got it. Okay.
So it was one sound guy, and whoever came in, they didn't really bring their own sound
Now-
guys.
The venue has a guy, and the band has their guy.
Not at that level.
I was going to say,
I went out.
it's the venue guy.
For the most part,
Yeah.
it's the venue guy.
Yeah.
Let's see, Agent Orange and the Gears, I went out and did other shows with them after I met them at the Hong Kong.
Nice.
But most people, I mean, that's, you're just making it. You're not making a lot of money, so you don't really want to give any of that to a sound guy.
Right.
Unless he's going to be humping gear and stuff.
Well, I mean, and live sound being very different from recording, but certainly probably more stressful in my opinion, because it's on the fly. You
I
can't
mean,
be,
look, a lot of the records, as you know, I do, are live to 2-track.
Which
So
is
it's
awesome.
the same thing.
which is awesome.
It's
let's
the same thing.
Let's
only,
rely on performance.
only more difficult because you get to keep listening to it again and again. Whereas if you screw up on a live show, it's like, oh, wow, I remember that third song. It didn't sound very good. I don't really remember that.
That's funny. Well, I'm always a champion of engineers. I'm always telling people, like, you wouldn't get on a plane without a pilot, or, music, being fans of music that we all are. It's just, people just seem to forget, like, how it got recorded. You know what I mean? Like, they're like, oh, wait, yeah, the engineer, yeah, he's important. I'm like, so important, because obviously the song, eliciting emotion, can't do it without the artist. But we wouldn't hear it without the engineer.
Yeah, but also, I think, and I've heard others echo this sentiment, that if I as a mixer or an engineer am putting my heart into the record, that comes through as well.
Absolutely.
I think that it's less so nowadays because so many records are being made piecemeal.
Yep.
They're not coming to a great studio like this. Everybody's
people aren't
doing
recording
their
live
parts.
together.
Right.
It's weird.
So less so now, but definitely before you really couldn't make a record without an engineer. And
And you couldn't have a large format console in your house. It would take up a lot of room, not too many people. I mean, people had home
I
studios.
do.
You do now. You do now because you built a space. But I'm saying when we first started out, and my brothers first started at the record plant, there was very few people that had a big console in their house. I mean, there were certain artists that did, but it was rare.
Well, I think especially given the need to align tape machines and other things like that, you needed to, at the very minimal, have a tech that would come in and set you up.
Right.
And so for that reason, I did a lot of stuff. I scored all Michel Colombier's films in his studio in the living room of his house.
Right.
So,
Right. Oh, yeah, he also does film soundtracks. And he's available for hire, by the way.
yes.
It's such a funny thing when I'm talking to people. There's a lot of people, even people who work in film and TV, that don't realize that session players, record. Everybody's available for hire.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
They go, oh, that guy's famous. Pino Palladino. I'm like, you can hire him.
No,
He will play on your record if you can hire him.
Indeed.
So do you remember, besides the live sound thing at Hong Kong Cafe and sort of getting your feet wet with the LA punk scene, what was the first, besides the school, because we talked about the school and the Christian band, but what was the first band that you recorded as an engineer that was hired in a recording studio? I know, I make people think back.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I thought about doing some research and I didn't.
No,
have
it's okay. You don't
time.
need to. The answer is it
But-
doesn't matter. If you don't remember, you don't remember.
I mean, honestly, the first job I got was at Hollywood Sound Recorders, and they were doing the Jackson 5, Michael Jackson,
Amazing.
Crusaders, Commodores, all those kind of records. Helen Reddy,
Nice.
bunch of big artists going through there. But I was answering phones And, I was a runner, basically.
So Hollywood Sound and Sound Factory different.
Totally.
Yeah, and
Different
and
owner.
Hollywood Sound corner of.
It's not really a corner because Wally Hyder's had the whole corner of Selma and Cahuenga.
I was going to say
Big
Selma,
long
Cahuenga.
building.
Yeah.
Hollywood Sound was just to
Argyle
the east of that.
Okay.
No, because it's just to the east. So it's
okay.
a small street and then Hyder's, but Hyder's is all now restaurants and bars.
Oh right. Okay.
But
wonder
and
where
it's
that
now
was.
the Museum of Death.
Oh
So
right.
That pretty much kind of
Okay, so-
followed the music business.
So that did
From
it
Top
become
Studio to the Museum of Death.
because Producers Workshop was also
That was
there.
up on Hollywood Boulevard.
Okay, so that's Hollywood Boulevard versus this smaller street that you're talking about. Because where Producers Workshop is on Hollywood Boulevard is now called Boulevard. They had a bad
Yes.
fire and they rebuilt it. It's called Boulevard.
Yep.
Because I remember that because that's where Doug Sachs had the mastering lab.
Right. And oddly, the Hollywood Museum of Death was there for a while. And then it moved into Hollywood Sound.
Oh, that's funny.
It's taking so if you see anybody outside the studios from the Hollywood Museum of Death, shut the door.
That's so funny. Growing up in LA during that time must have been so cool. I mean, just coming into Hollywood and going to clubs and going to shows.
Oh, it was great.
We had the
It was
greatest venues. Still, we have incredible venues. I think the Greek and the Ford are fucking rad.
Oh, they're fun. Yeah, I mean, we have season tickets to the Hollywood Bowl, so we go to the Hollywood Bowl all the time. We love it, and
They're
the
the
Greek
best.
is fantastic. But even at that, there's, there was the Starwood, there was a whole
Dude, the
bunch of
Starwood.
various clubs, the Whiskey,
The Roxy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great sound systems in all of those clubs,
Yeah.
actually. I remember hanging out and going to the Starwood when I first moved here in the 80s. That was the whole... that was sort of the dawning of the glam hair thing on the Sunset Strip. But before that, and this we're talking about before that, so Hong Kong Cafe, Germs, Black Flag, all these bands. So that's the kind of records you were buying. And you're going to Tower or you're going to a record shop and you're listening to records.
Yeah.
Did you get... were you getting anal about like your hi-fi at your house, or were you just using your parents' turntable?
I mean, I moved out pretty quickly there. I moved out right after I graduated high school.
I did
and
too, yeah.
Moved in with 45 grade.
Oh, that's right.
So I didn't really have much of a hi-fi.
Right, okay. So
We were bare bones.
this is a bachelor pad. Where was that first apartment?
It was Clinton Avenue near Wiltern. Wiltern and Clinton. So it's just 1 or 2 blocks south of Melrose.
Okay, gotcha. So, so it's kind of east.
It doesn't exist anymore. It
East-
was a
east almost.
series of townhomes. Green on Red actually lived in one of the ones across from us.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So you actually have quite a lot of knowledge about the early LA punk scene.
Yeah. I mean,
More
I
than
was
most people I've talked to be honest.
I was pretty involved with it, but you know.
So did you notice, or as you're, winging it, doing live sound, doing all these things, did you think about the difference between recording a punk band versus like a rock band versus, when did you start doing other stuff?
Well, I mean,
So Hollywood Sound, we're Hollywood Sound.
Hollywood Sound is the first place, and I was a runner. But at the same time, through friends in the punk scene, I met a guy who worked at a place called Mystic Sound, which was at Selma and Vine on top of a bank.
Okay.
And Doug Moody owned it.
Okay.
And so I hung out with them and talked to them for a bit, and then hung out there. And then
What kind of console did Mystic Sound have?
it was a Spectrasonics.
Okay.
Spectrasonics console, Ampex MM1000 tape machine.
Mm-hmm.
It was a 3-appendage punch-in situation.
God.
You had to do something with your knee, something with this hand, and then
Oh, good God.
it was crazy. And it was such a large head gap
Yeah.
that you had to punch in, a
There's a-
good 3/4
Yeah,
of
there's
a
a
beat
whole
before.
delay thing happening when learning how to punch and those and even on the ATR 124s as well.
If you ask any engineer to tap time, and they're an older engineer, they'll be ahead of the beat.
Well, yeah,
Because that's
how they had to
what you
be
have
to
know.
get it recorded properly. So Mystic Sound, did you graduate from runner to assistant there?
No, Mystic, basically the reason I went to Mystic is I could just make records.
Oh, you're already like a
They were
producer
just
now.
like, go ahead.
You're like a producer.
Yeah. I mean,
That's
just-
you're kind of jumping the.
Yeah. But I will tell you this, that while I was doing both, I would do night sessions and stuff. I would also, do deliveries and things that needed to be done.
Yeah. It's just probably a smaller place.
And I remember I had to take a cassette to the producer's house. And so I'm thinking, oh, this is cool. I'll get to meet, this producer who produces all these records. And I don't know, do you travel Fountain much at all?
Sure.
So
We're talking House of Pies or the other
west
side?
of here on Fountain,
Okay.
there's a little red liquor store.
That's one of my favorite. I buy my lotto tickets from there.
Right across the street from that is a dumpy apartment building with bars on all the windows.
Oh.
The front corner was where the producer lived.
Dude, this guy's not doing as well as we thought.
I just remember thinking, here's
Here?
this guy, he's the big producer, and wow, maybe I don't want to be in the record business.
Dangerous apartment. I love that red market though. I'm convinced I'm going to win the lotto from that market.
All right.
I've been buying tickets
Is that
since this was cello.
your sole
I mean, I
place?
go to other places, but I also try to get tickets from there. So we're in East West Studios, which I mentioned that I'm fortunate to be the manager of, and we're sitting in Studio 2. So this studio has been a studio since the 60s. So while Clark was erstwhile working at Mystic and driving to Fountain to deliver this cassette, this studio existed. So you're at Hollywood Sound, you're at Mystic.
I actually applied for a job here. When it was this
Western?
when it was Western. I gave my little resume. I gave my resume everywhere. United,
Sure.
Western.
Of
everywhere.
course.
Nobody called me back except for Hollywood Sound.
Well, there you
So.
go. Who was manager at Hollywood Sound? My friend Vicky worked there for a while. Who was
Vicky came in later.
We love her.
Ramona
Ramona? Cool.
was.
Studio managers have almost traditionally always been women. I mean, there are men who
Yeah.
do the job, but a lot of them have always been women. So don't, just going back to the 60s, just know that women have been in the music industry. It's going to work out.
And
So-
important parts of it.
Oh, thank you. So now you're producing records. Like, do you remember the first band?
Not
that
really
you-
producing because I was just acting as the engineer. But
Gotcha.
Yeah, and I do not remember. That's what I was going to research.
It's all
is some of
right.
the names of the bands that came through.
It's all right.
I really don't.
There must have been a turning point, though, and you did something kind of that you either Hollywood Sound or Mystic or
Well, what happened is I worked at Mystic and Hollywood Sound kind of for a while.
simultaneously.
And then I realized that when I would sit behind the engineers at Hollywood Sound, it was John Guess and
Oh, yeah.
and Tom Perry, and I mean these guys were really good, and
Yeah.
there was stuff to be learned there. And so I decided to take a step backwards and work my way into being an assistant at
That's
Hollywood
why you
Sound
mentioned
rather
second
than
time around.
rather
That's
than
right.
making bad sounding punk rock records.
Well, I mean,
No, that wasn't the second time. That was
you wanted to learn the crafts, though.
yeah.
Oh, that's the first time.
And that was all because Italy is the breaking point.
Okay.
See, we're going to learn about Italy. We're going to learn about Mini Coopers. We're going to learn about music.
so much to learn. So just carry on with the trajectory. So you're at Hollywood Sound and you're kind of really learning from some pros. And then how did Italy come into the
really
mix?
good guys. And then Hollywood Sound started to we took over, Hyder's closed.
Yes.
We took over Hyder's
I had
4.
a couch from there.
Did you?
I did, yeah.
We took over, I mean, the assistants were literally ripping gear out of the racks because they hadn't been paid
Yeah.
in months and selling it.
And was that when John Feliciano had taken over ownership? Jose Feliciano's wife. Yeah. That's a universal sound for what happens to equipment
Where
when
the,
money is
where the
needed.
studio
I'll
went.
let you use your imagination as to what that means. Anyway,
So
I remember that time frame.
So yeah, we took over Hyder's 4, which was next door to Martoni's. If you
Great
remember
restaurant.
Martoni's, it was a really
Oh,
good
good
music
Italian.
hang. I was a teenager, but Lee, the bartender, got to know me because I'd come in with clients all the time. And so it was the only place I could go and get served at the bar, and he'd never
Were you,
ask
like,
because he
19?
knew me. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was fun for me.
Great food. I went on a date with Ed Cherney there.
Did you really?
I did indeed.
Oh, my pal.
Yeah. During a hiatus with Rose, it was just an innocent date. We just had dinner.
Yeah.
So, I mean, does Martoni's have something to do with you going to Italy?
No, nothing. No, I basically I had hitchhiked throughout Europe, just to backtrack, a couple of times when I was still in high school.
Oh, okay.
I went over there for a summer. And
Did you take a bike with you? Did you ride a bike over there?
I didn't. I've never cycled in Europe. Oh, well, no, I did. Now, when I moved there, I did. I bought a custom-built bicycle and I rode through the mountains. But I had hitchhiked all through Europe and gone through Northern Africa, Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco.
Amazing.
And in Italy, they just treated me extremely well. Like, they were all excited that the American was
I think
here.
it's your red hair.
Maybe. Not much of it left.
They love red hair. There's a lot of red hair to tell.
They won't treat me well anymore.
Yes, they will. Yes, they will. Because you'll come on sty.
No, I just wanted to know why they were so nice. And so...
Because they're eating the best fucking food and drinking the best wine, and they got the most beautiful country.
And they're... Yeah, exactly.
They're happy.
So, yeah, that's, and they work to live. They don't live to work.
Exactly.
They know. They have a good work-life
We
balance.
could learn something from these countries as well.
So Hollywood Sound started losing kind of its reputation, and the band, the music wasn't as good that was coming through. And I had a soul-searching moment of, I'm either going to completely get out of the music business or I have a change of venue.
I'm very glad you didn't.
Well, thank you.
But and you went back to Italy.
So I took 2 weeks of lessons at Berlitz School of Languages.
I love it.
I could say hi,
Berlitz.
how are you?
I studied Berlitz as well.
And I moved to Italy, and I had, a decent amount.
Come stai?
Bene, grazie. So
Did I say that right?
You did. So yeah, I moved to Italy and was just having fun. And my cousin, a friend of mine, I have relatives there in Milan.
This is the part where Keith is supposed to jump in on the talkback and go, "You went to Italy?" Because
He never told me about that.
I'm sorry, Keith.
No, he's talking about me.
I'm sorry, voice of God.
He's talking about me because I talked about my one trip to Italy like it was like I was the one like I was in charge of Italy.
Oh, right.
Like I was Italy.
Well, once you've been there.
You know what I'm saying? So you had this sort of, soul-searching moment, and you go to Italy, and you loved it.
I loved it, and I was hanging out with friends and having a great time. And my cousin, I would go to my uncle's house for Sunday dinners. They would invite me to their house every Sunday.
Where'd your uncle live?
In Milan. They had a house in Milan, a house in Ski Village, and a house on an island. They had 3 houses.
Okay.
My great grandfather.
Is this your dad's brother?
This is now going aside. See, we're
It's fine.
going to go in all
We do what
kinds of
we
different
want. We
directions.
do what we want.
My great grandfather came to California and made a bunch of money in the gold rush.
What's your name? Germano?
Gimignani. And he went back and built a villa outside of Tuscany, and
Fuck yeah.
then all the kids, got into banking. And
How did
stuff.
Stan? What the fuck, Stan? Jesus. Sorry.
Well, I mean, that's a whole nother story. Like, that's no.
Gimignani.
Yes. So my cousins.
Gimignani cricket. Oh, sorry. I could help it.
I know.
Sorry. But you're eating over there, hanging out with the
Hanging out,
cousins?
and my cousin had a friend that she was going to school with, and she said, "Well, what are you doing here?" And I said, "Well, I'm eventually going to work, and right now I'm just having fun." And she said, "Well, I'll set up the interviews for you, and I'll translate." I said, "Okay."
Ooh,
So she calls up all these people and gets me
Job interviews.
and I get 3 job offers.
Wow.
One of them included a room in a 14th century castle overlooking a forest
Why are we here? Why aren't we there?
outside of Como.
Oh my God.
So I took that.
Yeah.
And I lived in that castle for about 1.5 years.
Did you build a studio in the castle?
No, the studio was in the castle.
There
I
was a
working.
studio in the
There
castle?
were 2 studios.
So wait a minute. You got a job in this castle
Yeah,
as an engineer.
yeah.
Oh my God, fuck off.
And a room. It included a room.
What the fuck?
The owner was the bass player for kind of the Beatles of Italy. It was a band called Ipu.
Oh, okay.
And Red Cancian was the bass player, and he owned one of the studios. The other studio was owned by some independent people. And while I was there, Yes actually came in and recorded part of Big Generator
Very cool.
in that studio with
Great band.
Trevor Horn producing.
Nice now, not then. Said it. Sorry.
Yeah, no, hey.
But huge fan.
Yeah, no, his work is phenomenal.
Oh, it's incredible.
Body of work is great.
So Why'd you leave Italy, dude? I mean, I'm glad you're here, but
Well,
what
I mean,
the hell?
look, my mother got breast cancer, basically,
Oh.
and so
Now, did you
back.
marry the girl that was his translator?
I did. No, not the translator girl.
Oh,
No,
not the girl that got you the
I
job
had a
interview.
crush on her, but no, I did not marry her.
How'd you meet your
I married
ex-wife?
she was my Italian teacher at Berlitz School of Languages. So when I came
Dude.
back, I called her up and I said, "Hey, I've learned a little bit of Italian. Most of
But
it
so
is
she was here.
most of it is music based. But you want to go out
She's
to
the
dinner?"
girl that taught you Italian from Italy, and she lives in LA.
Well, she taught me Berlitz here.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But she was Italian.
Yeah, oh yeah, from outside of Pisa.
It's crazy.
And so we only spoke Italian in the house for 10 years. Brought up my daughter only speaking Italian.
Nice.
Yeah, we thought it was, but my daughter told me later it was very embarrassing for her when she went to school and nobody could understand her.
Aw.
So I'm sorry, Mia, if you watch this. Again, I apologize.
Mia's badass. She's good.
Oh, no, she's taken the world.
She's risen above.
Yes.
This hurdle did not stop her. Well, this leads us to the part of where did Mia come from? Did you find her under a lettuce leaf? I mean,
There you
so
go.
you had Mia with your first wife. Now, what's your
Yes.
first wife's name?
Diana.
Diana. So you come back to you come back to LA. You and Diana blossom. You get married. You have the lovely and talented Mia. During that time, what studio did you work at?
When I came back from Italy, I didn't have any clientele. So I needed clientele.
So now we're starting over again.
Now I just started over, and that's when I started working at Ocean Way.
Gotcha.
Now at Ocean Way, I just came in immediately as a second, obviously, because I'd done lots
Who
of
hired
records
you
already.
at Ocean Way?
Jay.
Nice.
Yeah, Jay was there
I like
at the
Jay.
time. Yeah, he was good. So yeah, Jay was there. I started doing records there, and then he took over these rooms. So we
Yep.
had both rooms. So I was working a lot in all of these
In
rooms.
both buildings.
And I was working on things that I was
Dude, amazing stuff.
I
We're
was
so
thrilled.
lucky.
I mean, U2 Rattle and Hum. I had been a big fan of U2's, and
And was that in the United side or this?
that was in Studio One.
Wow.
Yeah, we set
So
up the
we're
whole band.
numbers at 6000 Sunset and at 6050 United. They were letters.
Yep.
Now, what console was in Studio A? Was that Focusrite in there early on?
No, there was an API.
Nice. And the Dalcom would have been in B.
Yes, as Chris Lord Alge dubbed it, the baseball bat console. Everything you put through that console hits you in the face. Is what he said, like a baseball bat.
Pretty cool console. I'm just saying.
Oh, it was a phenomenal
It was
console.
amazing.
Phenomenal
I'm just
console.
saying.
And
So-
Alan was very smart because it didn't have shelving, so he put a whole set of APIs next to it, so you could have
Nice.
shelving EQ.
Oh, nice. Yeah, Alan Sides, wonderful engineer, owner of Ocean Way Nashville for a time. Designs incredible speakers. I have ATCs here, and there's reasons, but I very much respect his ability and
His big speakers were phenomenal.
They're amazing.
The problem is, if you didn't know how big they're supposed to sound, a lot of people thought this is really good sounding. And on those speakers, it had to be that.
Yeah.
Or it was going to be small.
When I came here in '98, they were all Ocean Way
Yeah.
mains. So you worked in both buildings. What were some of the people that worked with you? Some of your peers at that time that were working as assistants or staff guys?
Steve McMillan, Bob Loftus,
Yeah, oh yeah.
who else? Stacy Baird, who I
Yeah.
just saw the other day.
Nice.
I see Stacy every once in a while. He's in politics now. He's an
Yeah.
advisor to a senator and
God bless.
doing very well.
Good for him.
Let's see. Those were the main guys that I recall. Then later on, there were other guys. Mark Gilboa, who I actually took independent with me on a few films as my personal
nice.
assistant.
Oh, nice.
And I'm still in touch with him.
Nice. Yeah, there are a lot of people, when I came late in '98, but when I came to this building at 6000, I stole a bunch of the assistants from United, like Alan Sanderson, John Sorensen. Alan has a studio in San Diego. John Sorensen, I believe, teaches at McGill. I'm not sure if I have that. He's originally from Newfoundland. But a lot of Katie, a lot of great assistants that I kidnapped.
Yeah. And Rafa came in
Rafa Sardina.
after I left.
Yeah, and also was Mike. Oh my God, I can't believe I just forgot his last name. If you listen to this, don't be mad at me. amazing engineer, very quiet. Mike Scatella. Great engineer, great assistant, Mike Scatella. And Katie, too, amazing. All of them, amazing. So, when did you sort of, was the first thing you did launching as an independent, was it a film or was it a record? Or do you remember when did you no longer have to answer to Clarice or Alan?
I mean,
I'm assuming Clarice would have come in at that point, at some point in time when you were.
yes, because Jay left
Yeah.
and Karen was
Okay.
involved for a while, and then Clarice came in.
Got it.
I mean, I was doing independent things. They were nice in that, if you knew Alan, and especially if you became one of Alan's choice assistants that would work with him.
Yeah.
Alan loved to play asteroids.
I love that game.
And so I
never knew that. I love that game.
Alan would be out of the room. And so the client would come in and they'd see me sitting there.
Deep trust
and
going on.
Right. Well, deep trust, but also
Earned trust.
Alan didn't really, he was fine if someone else took the gigs at that time. And so I got a lot of gigs that way through Alan either suggesting me or them just saying, hey, look, you're the one behind the console every time I walk in. So,
Nice.
so I got a few clients that way. And then I would, the guys at Ocean Way were kind in that they would allow you, if you got an independent gig, to go out and do that record. And if you didn't have another gig lined up, to come back and do some assisting.
I would do that too. It becomes problematic if I don't have enough people to do sessions.
Right. Yeah.
Other than that, I would never want to hold anybody back because obviously they're going to be your client.
Yeah.
They're going to come back and book time, which is, I'm sure, what you did.
Yeah, I still do.
Yeah, you're going to be good. Clark is actually going to be in here in a week or so. Am I allowed to mention the artist?
Sure.
Zach Tabori, amazing. Am I saying that right?
Yes, you are.
Amazing musician. He's been here a couple times. I'm ever grateful. And as a studio manager, and I think I've said this many times, you don't realize it when you first start out, when it's not happening when you first start out, but as time goes by, you start to begin to realize that you basically have been hiring and helping train your future clients.
Yeah, you've said that. I've heard you say that a couple of times on these.
Dude, it's so true, and I'm so grateful because it's got to be good people. It's got to be talented people to do that.
But I mean, these rooms, look, the rooms are classic. You can't replace these rooms, and you don't have them anywhere else, and we have less and less of them.
I know, it's concerning. It's my fight that I fight. Yeah. But again, if you didn't get people to book time, quid pro quo.
Right.
If you don't book time, we can't survive. So remember that. So even if you're an artist, and certainly people can make great music in their houses. I'm all about artist empowerment. I wouldn't slag that, but even if you save the money to come in and do one day of real drums or whatever it is, it's an important part of your, musical, creation, you're going to find that it's going to enhance your entire overall project if you hire a good engineer and go into a real studio. Because the acoustics alone are going to make it better.
And I think that there's
mojo.
There's mojo, and there's a feeling of excitement of who came before you here.
Right.
Who else is recorded in these rooms?
Yeah.
I mean, it's inspiring.
Oh, I
Specific smell as well.
okay, God. God says there's a smell. But I have to agree. I mean, I had managed a couple of other places. My older brothers worked at the record plant. I mentioned that. And the places that I have worked at were built in the 70s or the 80s. And I always knew about these buildings. We all did. We were all, fans. And all the records that came out of them, Mamas and Papas, Beach Boys, whatever, just name dropping. But it's true. And you knew about these places. But when I first came here to work here, I had never seen an ATR 124 because I started as an assistant. But when I came here, I was already manager. But when I saw that, I'm like, oh my God, it looks like a freezer. It's huge. I'd only seen like an MTR 90. I'd never seen anything like that. And I'd also never seen a room that didn't have a lot of isolation because more modern studios tend to have more isolation, good and bad. I mean, Studio 3 doesn't need it, and Studio 3's not fucking awesome.
Yeah, there's been great records done in Studio 3.
You know what I'm saying? And great records done in many studios that have lots of that. But it just was new to me.
Right.
And a tile floor, which I'd never seen before. I was used to wood.
I mean, this room didn't have either of these booths.
Right
when
now,
I was
this
first
one,
here.
this one was late 70s. They told me, so it's 80s.
Well, but it didn't have the
Gobos.
doors. It had
It didn't have
gobos,
doors, okay.
and this didn't exist at all. So,
Interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, I was always told that they built that and sort of made it or created it for Anthony Kiedis for Chili Peppers record, but I don't know if that's true.
Dunno.
Yeah, it could be true.
Dunno.
And this is actually quite a dead booth. Actually, this one back here, good for like a bass amp or something like that. But anyway, great drum room we're sitting in. And Clark and I
For
are
now.
kind of sitting in the sweet spot for the drums right now.
Indeed.
Actually, we're kind of in the drum spot.
That's where they'll be next week.
Anyway, I'm going to start to kind of wind down, but I do want to just shine a light on the fact that all these diverse experiences that you had, taking the time off, going to Italy, listening to different music, working with musicians in Italy, working with different styles of music, punk music, rock music, and, Italian rock music. We're so Americans, we're so sort of American centric. There's music everywhere.
Yeah, and great music.
and great music.
Obscure
And I'm not
great
just talking
music.
about world music, but yes, there is that as well. But there is, like the Heroes del Silencio in Spain, or Zucchero in Italy.
Zucchero's
you'll
awesome.
you'll say he's like the Bruce Springsteen of Italy, but he's just Zucchero.
Right.
You know
No,
what I
he's
mean?
himself.
That's just to give you a concept of his fame or his
Right.
appreciation by the Italian people. And his, his tenure as an artist.
Yeah.
But I think that all these experiences made you a better engineer, better producer, because I think it trained your ears to listen to different stuff.
Well, sure. I
You're
think-
not just
yeah.
stuck in a rut, and you probably had to wing it a bit. Maybe you didn't have all the tools and bells and whistles in certain places. Maybe you had to figure out,
Well, I'll just tell you a quick story that when I got
yeah,
to
this
Italy,
is what I want to hear.
when I got to Italy, in Italy, the engineer is the synth programmer.
Oh, okay, shit.
So I get to Italy, and
and you're like the MIDI guy.
I have my first gig, and I meet the producer for the first gig the next day. Our session's going to be the next day, and he hands me a cassette tape, and he said, "We're doing a copy of this song tomorrow. Please have the bass part and the keyboard part sequenced by the time I come in."
Fuck off.
I'm shocked. I'm like, "Where's Mike Boddicker?" I don't-
Yeah.
So I go
great.
in there with a little MPC-60. I'm up all night. I get them. I get them both done. Right?
Of course you do.
Get both parts
You're
done.
Clark Germain. Or Clark fucking Germain, as I like to call it.
I dry off my sweat. In comes the producer. He hears it. He goes, "Okay, sounds good." And he points and he goes, "I think we'll use the Fairlight for the bass sound today."
Oh, you're fucking kidding me right
just-
now.
at that
you're
point,
fucking
I'm like-
kidding me right now.
Okay, I got to be straight with you.
Oh, dude.
Other than the fact that there's a key on the front of
Let's
that thing.
explain to the children about the Fairlight. Fairlight, Gen X. Let's just go there, Clark. Explain to them what was the Fairlight. Explain to them what the Fairlight was.
I mean, it was the Fairlight and the Synclavier. They were the early digital synthesizers. They could quote unquote sound like anything, but basically there's a computer terminal.
But I was going to say, where are you capturing the audio to, though? Tape machine
Oh, it was
still?
tape. Yeah,
Okay,
it was tape.
Okay.
Yeah, we had a MCI console and an MCI tape machine.
Okay.
Yeah.
JH24?
JH24.
Oh.
Yeah, and the console did not sound that good.
Nope.
No.
How were the speakers?
It was a East Lake audio room, so decent.
Interesting.
He went over there and did a lot of that same design.
Was that like Tom Hidley doing that
Yeah,
stuff? Oh,
it was all
nice.
Hidley rooms. He went over in
Nice.
Europe and did a lot of rooms. So basically, both facilities were built in the 70s. This guy was going to make the whole castle a music ensemble,
Nice.
huge music complex.
Nice.
But then the business kind of fell apart in the early 70s, and so he leased out the two studios that were finished
Oh, gotcha.
to these guys. But we went backwards. See, we're trying to wrap this up.
No, it's okay.
We're going backwards. We
I don't
haven't even
mind.
talked about my later career.
Oh, we'll get there. We'll get there. We're not going to wrap it up. We're gonna go there. We've got time. So, you come back. You're doing the thing in Italy, and you're flying by the seat of your pants because you'd already worked in this building. No, hadn't worked in this building yet.
No, hadn't worked. That's why I went
Okay,
backwards.
we're moving all around. You keep up. All right, so it's not on me. It's on you, listener and viewer. So,
If you're still watching at this point.
oh, they are. So you So let's go back real quick to starting to freelance, getting gigs from Alan, and
Yeah,
starting
so-
to do that and working on films and stuff like that.
I started to do some of the freelance stuff, and that was a really funny story because I did a stint with Burt Bacharach where I was doing his engineering, and my parents at this time, I'd been in the music business for a number of years, and I'd worked on Rattle and Hum, and I'd cut Mr. Jones with the Counting Crows, and I'd done all this stuff that I was super proud of, but my parents were pushing me, when are you going to stop playing around in the music business and get a real job?
Oh my God.
And they were at dinner at my house down in San Pedro one night, and the phone rings. This is pre-cell phones. Phone rings, I pick it up, and I look and I say, I got to take this. It's Burt Bacharach.
It's Burt Bacharach.
And from then on, I was fine with my parents.
Yeah,
it
they're
was like all these other
our son's a
bands,
star.
they didn't know, they didn't care.
Our
But,
son's a star. He's working with Burt Bacharach.
Burt
Who,
Bacharach's
one of the-
calling him at home.
But undoubtedly one of the greatest songwriters of all time.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
And performers of all time.
So then the other jumping off was when I was in I apologize for
It's all
going
right.
back again.
all right.
But when I was at Hollywood Sound, one of the first people to ever let me engineer was a guy named Lee Mendelson. And he did all the Charlie Brown specials. He
Cool.
produced all the Charlie Brown
Oh, I
specials.
love that.
And he had this famous saying, and when I went to his service, his funeral, it was common amongst everybody that worked for the man, cameramen, everybody. He would say, "You'll learn." Because I was a kid and I wasn't really ready. Tom Perry, who was the engineer, couldn't make it one day. And he goes, "Oh, you'll engineer tomorrow." And I said, "I don't know." "No, you'll learn."
It'll work out.
And so that's when I'm, 17, 18.
Oh, wow.
And then fast forward years later, I'm at Ocean Way,
Yep.
and I meet David Benoit because I'm working on a record for him. And these guys know that David Benoit is playing Linus and Lucy on his live show all the time. So Lee Mendelson gets a hold of David Benoit to start scoring the new Charlie Brown things. And they have this long meeting, and at the end of the meeting, they say, "What engineers do you like?" And he says, "Well, just started working with this guy, Clark Germain."
And that's
they
David
said,
Benoit or
"Oh
Lee
my God,
Mendelson?"
we used, yeah.
Oh, I love it.
We
See,
used to
that's
use Clark years
happy
ago.
kismet.
Yeah.
You get the
indeed.
double referral, the double confidence.
No, it was fun. So yeah, I did that, and then
So now he's gone from punk to David Benoit.
right.
This is part of the trajectory.
Ne'er the twain shall meet.
Yeah. So a lot of stuff in between. We could talk for a long time, and
Lot
we
of
might
stuff.
do a part two. But on this specific episode, when did you build a studio in your house? Oh, by the way, he did get divorced and get remarried. His daughter is grown. His wife, Tina, is fucking incredible. He lives in Laurel Canyon now, not San Pedro, and he has a studio in his house.
I've done a lot of things I shouldn't have done, and I'm still here.
When did you go from? I mean, I know you still work in studios, and I'm glad you're coming in. But when did you decide to build a place in your house?
I started seeing the lack of budgets being, or the budgets being cut, and the need to do something, whatever level it was at my place.
You want to stay. You want to keep getting gigs.
And I wanted to be able to do it at the level. I wanted to be able to turn out material at the level that I could at the big studios. So that's when I decided. I hired George Oxberger to design my studio.
I love him so much.
Vincent Van Hoff was a neighbor, winds up. We became friends. He kind of
him.
consulted on it.
He's no longer with us. What a great guy.
No, he's a great guy. So that was probably mid to, like 95, 96.
Got it.
Is when I did that and built that. But I don't record much. I mean, I have a Steinway there, so I record piano there, but I don't.
So you don't track there, but you're now known for, obviously, for both. You're a tracking engineer and you're a mixer and you're a producer. But at your house, what you do is mixing.
Is make my wife happy.
There you go. Well, we love that. Good man. And he's also a great cook. We haven't talked about that.
That's episode 2.
All these trips in Italy, good food, good wine. Clark's a Renaissance man. We talked about this.
Yeah.
We told you this. Anyway.
We haven't even gotten into the Mini Cooper stuff.
Oh, fuck, we got to get to that too. I don't know. I don't know where we're at. God, where are we? What point are we at, God?
God,
Over an hour.
Oh, really? Okay.
God's eating.
Okay, I say 15 more minutes.
God's eating.
15 more minutes in this
All right,
episode.
well, I'm gonna
what
let
do you
you-
think? What do you think, Ned? 15 more. We're gone.
I'm letting you drive the boat then.
This is well. That's always your first mistake. But I have found it doesn't. Hour 15 is a sweet spot
All right.
for people. So we got 15 minutes. We're going to slam some stuff in there, Clark. So,
Slam. Speed dating.
well, we've already discussed that you're sort of a Renaissance guy. You know, you can work on cars. You can pour concrete. You have concepts of basic construction. Thank you to Stan. Thank you, Stan.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, I wish I could have hung with Stan at the Elks Lodge.
Oh my God.
Because I think he's my kind of guy.
That was his.
I'm just
that was
saying.
his domain.
I think he was my kind of guy.
Oh yeah.
When I'm older, where's she at? She's at the Elks Lodge.
They allow women now.
I know they do.
Much to the dismay of my father.
I know they do allow women.
He was
now.
not happy about
I might have to join like the Masons or the Shriners just so I can have the Order of the Eastern Star, which is what the female version is of the Shriners and the Masons. But that's for another time. So while you're doing all of this, while you're living your life, and that first marriage is changing and ending, and your daughter's growing up, and you're following your path, and you're working with Burt Bacharach, and you're doing all of these things. When did you get your first Mini Cooper?
I got my first Mini Cooper when I was 17.
What? How many have you restored?
That was back in Hollywood Sound days.
Oh my gosh, so Hollywood Sound, first Mini Cooper. So
I was working for Madame Bongo, the Queen of Gabon, Africa, and she was paying in cash. And so I had all this cash.
Did you say the Queen of Gabon?
Gabon.
Gabon?
Gabon, the richest per capita nation in the world at the time, because they were the smallest of the OPEC nations.
Keith, didn't we have the king of Gabon here like less than 2 years ago?
I think he's in jail for human rights violations.
Is he?
Mr.
I don't
Bongo?
remember which king it was, but it was for a birthday project.
It was a birthday, and I thought it was the king of Gabon.
I don't think it was Gabon, but I'll
Wasn't Gabon.
Might have been.
Another country.
Anyway,
not a
so
bad guy. This guy was not in jail, so.
On Hollywood Sound's ledger, I saw what I was going to be working on the next day, and it said Madame Bongo. And I thought, oh God, it's going to be a new wave girl that jumps around and plays bongos. It was the Queen of Gabon, Africa.
And what was she a great singer?
Yeah, I mean, she was good, and she did what she does.
Which is?
Very African, ethnic.
Cool.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Super cool.
Yeah.
So it's world music. We didn't talk about jazz yet. It's world music. It's punk. It's rattle and hum. You know what I mean? It's Burt Bacharach.
Yeah.
When you say it like this and you look at it, it's pretty freaking diverse.
Well, I mean, it's definitely diverse. I mean, I think that, the advantage of working in a studio like Ocean Way or here or
Yeah, you just got to do what we give you, man.
Record Plant or any of the major New York studios is all these different things come through.
Yeah.
And so you get exposed to all these different things even as an assistant. And then your clientele, your potential client base is of all
Broad.
these different...
Now, did you ever fix a Mini Cooper for a client?
No.
Did you ever go on a bike ride?
That is how I met Vincent. Vincent was driving down the street. Vincent Van Hoff was driving down the street, and he saw my Mini Cooper in front of my house. And he stops in his BMW, and he said, "Are you the proud owner of that yellow Mini Cooper?" And I said, "Well, yes. Why?" He goes, "I have a Mini Moke, and I need someone to fix it." And I said, "I've built 2 Mini Coopers from the ground up. I've literally taken them down to just the body shell and completely built them." I said, "I know them like the back of my hand, but I don't have time anymore. I'm in the music business." He says, "I'm in the music business as well." I said, "What do you do?" He says, "I design and build recording studios."
I'm an acoustician.
And so I got his email. I wrote him later that night, and I said, "At the risk of losing our long-term friendship, I happen to be building a recording studio right now."
And I could use your help.
And he was super cool. He came down,
that's
sat
sweet.
down when I was still in the construction phase, and added a bass trap to the back. And I said, "Do I pay you, a consultancy fee or something?" He says, "Are
Fix
you
my car."
kidding? I'm on my way home."
Yes, and fix my car.
I didn't fix his car.
Dude, you didn't even fix his car.
No,
So how many Mini Coopers have you restored?
2.
That's a lot, by the way. You're talking about working, dadding, because he's dadding. Were you ever single dadding?
Oh, yeah.
Dude, single dadding.
Yeah.
Single
For
dadding.
years.
Recording, Mini Coopers. I mean, come on. You're doing a lot.
Kept me out of trouble for
What about-
the most part.
What about barbecue? When did you start barbecuing?
Oh, my dad was a huge barbecue. My whole
Stan.
family. My grandfather, Stan Sr. and Stan Jr.
Stan the
which
man.
I was almost Stanley 3,
Oh wow.
which would have been, yeah.
Stan the man. I'm telling you, I missed an opportunity there with Stan. Although I think I did go to that Elks Club for an event that Chuck Kavoris did before he moved to Nashville, and it was the one in
The Glendale?
Yes.
Glendale Elks?
Yeah.
Wow, look at you.
I think
You get
so.
around.
Yeah, you know. That's what they say. So this is one thing. If you're watching these and you're trying to figure out, like, I'm always telling people there's no one way to get there. And we're trying to inspire you to both, listen to your parents, listen to your teachers. We're trying to inspire you to learn if it's engineering that you want to go into, or if it's playing an instrument, just do it. But life is happening as well. So, get out there, live life, meet people, eat food, go to Italy, get on a bike,
Have experiences.
put a bike on top of a Mini Cooper. Do you have a bike rack on your Mini Cooper?
I do not.
What?
I don't. I ride from the house for the most part.
Okay.
Almost all my. I rode this morning. Rode 30 miles this morning.
Fucking 30 miles? Mm-hmm. In the smog?
But it's more the hills. I have to get to and from my house. I have to climb over Sunset Plaza, so that's a big hill.
Dude, that's a hike.
That's more.
That's a hike. Is there anything, and we may do a part 2, but is there anything that you want to leave the listeners with as far as like any words of wisdom? I mean, I'm telling them just to go for it.
I totally agree. Go for it. I think that it's difficult for me because of the market I grew up in. That market doesn't really exist. It does to a certain extent. There's
Yeah.
this studio
Oh,
and a
working
couple
in
of other
commercial facility,
major
yeah.
studios. But
Some great schools now.
yeah, that's the thing that's completely
Yeah.
different. Like I said, I had to drive to Santa Ana. That was the
Right.
only school.
Right.
Now there's lots of schools. And there's lots of really good guys teaching at these schools. My friend Bob Power teaches at NYU. I mean, he's not going to be anymore next year. But, I mean, Bob Power did some amazing records. And to go to NYU and have Bob Power, even when he was currently still doing
Right.
big records, is
Dude,
phenomenal.
at UCLA Extension, you got Damon Tedesco. I mean, we got a lot of great people still teaching and working with people.
But also there's incredible stuff online. And I only say this because recently I'm doing this new record for Zach, and it's a really hard rock record. And my rock experience goes back to tape days.
Yeah.
So I knew nothing about, wow, what plugin should I use for this? So I delved
interesting.
into a lot of the online stuff and
Interesting.
hung out with Joe Barisi, who's a friend of mine,
love
went over
him
to his
so.
studio, played him some stuff. And
Aw.
so, rely on...
Joe said he wouldn't do the podcast, but I don't hold it against him because I love Joe anyway. He
Why
said
wouldn't
just,
he do it? Did
he
he give
said
you a
he's
reason?
just too shy. He just didn't want to do it.
He's a super nice guy.
He's the best.
I love Joe.
He's the best.
But those, there are multitudes of places you can get information, but know that some of the information may be false.
But you won't know it's false unless you already have some.
You won't. But I've seen, in doing this deep dive into these online things, I've seen a lot of people just emphatically saying,
It's
this
this.
is the way you do that. And
It's counterintuitive
I
to
want
you
to
as an
interrupt them
engineer,
and
right?
say,
It's counterintuitive to you
really
for
the way
someone
you
who's
do
already
that.
been doing it for a while.
Right.
Going, well, why don't we just, use a little EQ?
But it's it's the say it with,
Grace.
well, yeah, or they're more saying it with impassioned and making it sound like it's the truth that way, even though they don't necessarily know. There are good ones.
Yeah,
read through
I
it.
think there's a lot of younger people who, now I sound like our parents, but there's a lot of younger people who don't realize, there's a lot to be learned and a lot to be gained from talking to the people that came before you. Don't knock the people that came before you, dude. If it wasn't for the Tom Dowds and the Bill Putnams or the people that took broadcast consoles and modified them to use them for recording, or Les Paul, multi-track recording, whoops.
I mean, I learned so much from Alan Sides and Al Schmidt and
Yeah.
Bill Schnee,
Oh,
by
dude.
having the
him.
ability to sit behind these guys who just, I mean, I think in conclusion, I will say,
Yes.
I will quote Peter Erskine recently.
Greatest drummer, one of the greatest.
Peter Erskine was talking to another friend of mine who's a drummer, and he was listening to something, and he said, "Oh, well, that was done by Alan Sides." He said he could put a microphone in front of a cardboard box and make it sound good.
Aw.
So
Alan, see, there you go. Getting your props from your proteges. There you go. Well, Clark, again, we probably will do another one. The next one we're probably going to be drinking and talking about wine and stuff like that.
I am all for that.
We're all about that. But yeah, just do it.
If you've made it this far, congratulations.
Just do it. Just you know what? Read, go online. If you're living in a small town and you don't have access, maybe there's not a recording school there. That's the good news about these online courses, but take it with a grain of salt in that you want to look at a lot of them. Listen to a lot of different people.
And listen to records you love.
There you go.
And then start experimenting and play the record you love and play the record you're doing and compare the two.
And even over the nail polish. In conclusion.
In conclusion. Just to round it back.
Just get rid of the nail polish. All right, that wraps this episode.
All right.
Thank you so much, Clark.
Thank you.